with the athletes. We daily, we know that at this point, of course, we are all disappointed because we are not able to follow strictly what was planned. But I think we are all in good mood, thinking that we are going to have the opportunity because behind this issue, we have the best possible people that can help us just to find, if it's necessary, a completely different moment in the next week, if we need for that. But the situation at this point, we are quite confident that that will happen tomorrow, and then we will be very happy, all of us. And the first ones, the athletes.
We're going to open the floor to questions. Reuters? Oops, sorry, Kit, would you like to add something? Sorry. Kit, sorry, excuse me.
No problem at all, and good morning, everyone. Thanks, Aurélie. Thanks, Marisol. I think just from the IOC perspective, I'd just like to reiterate some of the points that Aurélie and Marisol have made. There's an extremely strong partnership around all of the elements of looking at the competition schedule between Paris and particularly the sport team led by Aurélie, the international federations, in this case Marisol and World Triathlon, and of course the Paris authorities as well. It's not uncommon, as Aurélie said, for changes to be made, particularly in outdoor sports around major sports events. I think you all are aware of that, and Aurélie highlighted the skateboarding that has already been changed and well delivered yesterday as a result of the change. This is not uncommon, but in making those changes, the partnership between all of the partners involved is the key, and that partnership is extremely strong here, both in the processes and the decision-making, and in all of that, again, the athletes are at the center of that, both in terms of the decisions and the communication that was highlighted by Marisol in particular. So thank you very much for that partnership. Thank you.
Now we can open the floor to questions.
Good morning, Julien Peto for Reuters. Can you please share with us the exact numbers that you've had from the latest tests that you made on the water quality? Because we don't have them. And also, the second question is the weather forecast for overnight looks pretty bad with risks of thunderstorms, hailstorms. Do you have any indication that this will not be the case? What is the forecast that you have, and can you share it with us, please?
So I take this one. Yes, so with regards to the data, so we had 4 points, so it was between 980 and 1,553. So which means that there was one that was below the threshold, and the other three there were two that were just slightly above, and one, as I mentioned, which was a bit more above. But I think what's key to understand is that this sample is taken 24 hours before. I mean, actually, we even reduced that time to 21 hours 30 in line with World Triathlon to ensure that we have the most accurate informations. And then when we have this meeting at 3:30 in the morning, not only do we have the results of the sample, but it's important to note that the data analysis fluctuates from one day to another. So for that, we also have information related to what's called the call reminder ahead of the competition venue that can give us information on the trend. We also have weather forecast specialists who are also in the meeting, who can provide accurate information about how the weather is going to influence the weather quality. And we have experts of the River Seine, so that when the decision is taken, we have the most informed information, because the sample is important, but it's not the only important thing that to take the decision. And I don't know, Gergely, if you want to add any point on that. Yeah, with regards to the weather forecast, so we had a discussion with Météo France this morning, indeed, who said that there is a chance that there could be some storms and maybe some rain later in the day, but they will provide us with more accurate information at 3 o'clock so that we know exactly what this means in terms of localization of the rain, because we're not talking only about it's raining, but where is it raining exactly, so that we know and we can assess the impact on the river.
Okay. No, I was telling you.
Hi, Rob Harris from Sky News. Just one factual question. First of all, is it E. coli bacteria that is the concern?
It is.
It is, okay. One for you. If the water isn't safe today, sport is about fine margins. How will athletes feel safe in it tomorrow? How possibly, if the water isn't safe today, how can it be safe tomorrow?
Because as you can tell from the results, I mean, we're very close to the threshold of World Triathlon, which means that we have in 24 hours, we have data on the River Seine since, 1 year and especially 3 summers, so we can assess the evolution. We know that the sun and the heat have a very strong impact on the quality of the water, and that's why we feel, because we are so close this morning, that we can, hopefully believe that tomorrow morning the water quality will be better.
And this might be one for Kit. Do you apologise to all those athletes who've been disrupted, all those fans and families of the athletes who would have come today expecting to see them compete, but now they aren't?
Look, I think you've heard that the conditions weren't right to put the athletes in the Seine today. So of course we try and run everything on schedule, but equally I think you've heard the reasons why, and also the fact that the athletes were at the centre of that decision and were the first ones to hear about their decision. And then in terms of the impact of that decision, we're also in touch with on the ticketing side regarding the impact on the friends and family of the athletes in particular.
The question here.
Bonjour, this is probably for Kit. Guy Havelt from TVNZ. Billions has been spent on the cleanup of the river for this. Assurances have been given to athletes. And now it seems a very realistic possibility that not only there might be another delay, but it could also be reduced to a duathlon. How embarrassing is this for the Games?
Look, I think Aurélie could probably add more about the infrastructure. I think, again, as you've heard, there have been significant improvements regarding the Seine. Let's be very clear about that. We can't control the weather. The weather did have a significant impact and has been the cause of the readings we had today. But equally, you've seen in the build-up period that we had a number of days of excellent conditions. So this is the reason why. But I think, again, Aurélie can underline some of the really significant improvements that have been made, not only for the Games, but for the future of the city here in Paris, like a lot of the work done for the Games.
Yes, exactly. I mean, as Kit mentioned, I mean, the objective and since the bid phase, in agreement with everyone, and we had so many stakeholders take place to ensure, and so much hard work that has been put in ensuring that, we could give back the Seine to the Parisian, which I think is an amazing message. So, unfortunately, as mentioned, there are unfortunate meteorological events outside of our control, but otherwise, I think the project is still very strong, and when we see the impacts on the quality and the legacy that we can leave also to the Parisians, I think we all feel extremely proud of what has been done so far. I mean, the project is still strong, and we are very confident that, there is an opportunity. Now, as I said earlier on, the amount, we know that it's also dependent on the amount of water that, can be absorbed by the River Seine, and the amount of water that has fallen on Friday and Saturday has been humongous. So it's true that, it's taking time for the river to go back to normal, but we still seen, and especially in the past weeks, we were extremely confident because we've seen how quickly, despite the rainfalls that we had in July, the Seine could recover.
Question on this side, on the first row.
Yes, hello, Matt Lawson from The Times. You are talking about things being beyond your control, but is it not the case that it is hardly surprising to have rain in Paris in July? You know, the statistics I've seen, it's the wettest month of the summer months, statistically. And you talk about putting the athletes first. Is it not the case that you've put the aesthetic of this event and showcasing Paris before the athletes?
This is your assessment. I mean, we based on I think all of the analysis that have been done and all the work that has been undertaken, you know, over the past year. I think based on the data and the normal rainfalls over the summer, I think we were really confident that with the contingency plans that we have in place, that all the triathlon event could take place fully. But the question about the athletes. No, I think we collectively with the IOC and World Triathlon wanted to ensure that we have a project that, as in every competition of triathlon, and I think Marisol can maybe jump on that. I mean, we're living in the 21st century where, unfortunately, there are far more meteorological events that happen that are beyond the control of the organizers. We've seen in previous editions of triathlon competitions that some of the events have been moved to duathlon because, you know, it's complex at the moment. We've seen that we go from, you know, heavy rain to extreme heat like today in very few days. So it's actually hard to control how it can affect the quality of a river.
Okay, I really want just to stress something. This group of athletes that we have here, men and women, we spent nearly 2 years or even 4 years together just competing all over the world. We know each other very well and we play as a family. We, of course, they are also represented in our executive board, 2 of them, 1 man, 1 woman, and they are part of this chosen situation here in Paris.
Over there.
Thank you. Clinton Maynard from 2GB9 Radio in Australia. Can you explain to, I guess, outsiders, how would a duathlon be fair, particularly for athletes who are stronger on the swim leg compared to the other legs?
It's the same condition for everyone. And
but wouldn't there be some athletes who are stronger on the swim leg than other legs, and then they're effectively put at a disadvantage?
Yes, but this is an adaptation. I mean, this is in the last 5 years especially. Unfortunately, we have to change to duathlon before to cancel the event. Because if we cancel the event, there is not medals, there is not money, prize money in our organizations, etc., etc. Then, as we adapt in other regards to a city where we are competing, this is a part of adaptation to the climate change that we are facing in this moment. In some cases, we have waves that they are too high. In another moment, we have a storm, electrical storm. Just half an hour before the race or something like that. But we can finish and we can do a competition because our athletes really want to compete and they really want to win, of course. And of course, it's unfair. I don't think it's unfair. It's just another situation of the competition. For example, some of them in cycling, they are very good going up. It's something in the same level, in my opinion.
3rd row.
Paul Waldy from the Globe and Mail. Are you worried at all about holding the men's race slightly later tomorrow, a couple hours later, given how hot it is.
Yeah.
And I wonder, why do you guys keep saying you're so confident? When all I've heard for the past week is you're confident, 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 and here we are today. Why do you keep saying you're so confident?
I mentioned I was hopeful. But we say we are confident. Obviously, yes, we are confident because we've seen in the months of July, with a different type of condition, that even if it rained, it was absorbed quickly by the river, so that the river could go and have a threshold that were acceptable for the international federation, and as such, I think it was. That's why we say we're confident, because we've seen this evolution, and that all the infrastructure that we put in place could work and impact. But it seems that the amount of rain that really fell over the past on Friday and Saturday was really truly important, and especially before the arrival into Paris, and that's why it's taking a bit longer to see the effects of that.
If I may, we have a forecast for tomorrow, and we are not just looking at the temperature, but we are looking at the heat index, so-called WBGT, which considers humidity and other factors as well. And the forecast is that, and we have a clear rule in our competition rules. We have 5 levels of heat index levels, and if we are able to run a competition or not, and the forecast is that we will be able to still run the competition as 10:45 for the men's race without any alteration or without any impact. On the other hand, we are working already with the teams to support even more the heat countermeasures, providing more ice, providing more water stations. So just to support the athletes in that sense, to make sure that they are safe from that perspective as well.
Hi, Robin Doolittle from the Globe and Mail. I have a question about the Canadian figure skaters. So earlier this year, when Kamila Valieva was disqualified, I think you announced you're awarding the figure skaters from Beijing Olympics medals.
Can we just come to that in a second? We just wanted to give everyone a chance on this one, so maybe 1 or 2 more questions on this, and then we'll move on to a regular press conference. Sorry, Anne.
Hi, it's Rob Moore from The Sun. What financial compensation and package and refunds are available for fans who have booked tickets for the men's race today and have to check out of hotels tomorrow, or even leaving the country tomorrow? And of course, if the race doesn't go ahead tomorrow and is pushed back to August the 2nd, more fans will not be able to attend. So what money is available for fans to apply for, please?
It's the same policy on ticketing that is across all sports. I mean, as I mentioned earlier today, it's not the first time that we have a competition that has been postponed. We had skateboarding on Saturday. It's been postponed to Monday. We had also the competition that could be postponed as well. So we're looking at the best solution to first ensure that the competition can take place. That's what we've done by working closely with the local authorities and with World Triathlon. Now there is a cancellation policy within our ticketing procedures that will apply for the, and of course we are, as ever, supportive. If they have any questions, they can address them to our ticketing.
First row, fourth.
Hi there, Adam Blauroy from Agence France Presse. It's a question for Aurélie and then a question for Marisol, if I may. Could you just explain the thinking behind not having a contingency plan for the triathlon in the same way that you do have a contingency plan for the marathon swimming that you can switch? And to Marisol, could you tell us a little bit more about the reaction of the athletes? We heard from the head of the French Triathlon Federation that some of his athletes were angry about this being called off at the last minute. And finally, could you just give us an indication of how many duathlons you have run, perhaps in the last year or the last couple of years, as a result of weather conditions being problematic? Thank you.
I started in the last one. As much as I recall at this very moment, it was the European Championships that it was held in Madrid last year. but the reaction of the athletes, you mean? Yes. Well, the feeling that we have, of course, we have in a group of 300, one fifth, was there are everything. But we have, for example, very clear cooperation from the coaches in order to reorganize all the things, and the feeling of the athletes that we know is just they take it as something that is not the first time that it happened to them, and they are tranquil at this moment. And I can imagine that if this situation is not is not resolved tomorrow, that hopefully that will be, then we need to stress more in having more possibilities for training, etc., which is something that, of course, they already have, but the situation before the competition is different, and probably they need more training that they have in the past 3 days.
And when it comes to your questions about marathon swimming versus triathlon, I mean, we worked very closely with World Triathlon when we looked at the contingency plans. The difference with like marathon swimming, it's either you swim or you cancel the race, while for the World Triathlon and the triathlon, you still have the opportunity, as Marisol said, which is of course the last resort, but to move to a duathlon.
Yes, another question.
Good morning, Carlos Kromer of Reuters. This is not the question on the triathlon. This is a question about the temperature going up. How satisfied are you with the self-cooling of the athletes' village? And also wanted to ask whether the French team have been using portable air conditioning systems that have been brought in, which obviously makes them slightly apart from other teams that are not able to bring in portable cooling systems. Thank you.
It was not the subject of this part of the press conference, but we will take it after.
Okay. We will, yeah, exactly. We will come to all your questions in a minute, but we thought it would be good to give you a chance to get this one out of the way. I think we're nearly done. I think otherwise we'll run on, but a couple more maybe.
Hi, it's Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail. Just a couple of questions. You talked about the logistics tomorrow. If this goes ahead, what plans, probably for Kit, what plans are there to ensure that the families of the male athletes will be able to attend? And also, we've asked for apologies for 2 days in a row now, and they've not been forthcoming. Why is there a reluctance to apologise for what is clearly an unacceptable situation?
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier in regard to the ticketing question, we are putting in place a policy around the friends and family tickets. I think we've done, that's being discussed at the moment to see how we can accommodate that for the 2 sessions into one tomorrow. And obviously the friends and family ticketing is something that we're very much committed to in a wider sense around the Games, as you well know. In regard to the apology, I think I'll pass on to the Paris side, but again, from an IOC side, I'd come back to the fact that, look, these contingencies have been in place. I get the point you're trying to make, but at the same time, you can imagine we've worked a lot on contingencies across all sports, including triathlon, and when the weather hits, we have to move to those contingencies. But I'll pass on to Paris. Thanks.
Yes, I mean, we are, of course, you know, it's an outdoor sport. So obviously, as we had to cancel training for BMX freestyles 2 days in a row because of weather conditions. So I think there are indeed some consequences when it comes to enforcing meteorological data or even like the rain. So the thing is, like, we are obviously very sympathetic. As you mentioned, Kit, we have put in place contingency plans. I mean, we're all focused on ensuring that we can have a full triathlon tomorrow. That's a priority. So let's see how it goes.
I think we're good for this part of the press conference. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
So we're obviously going to run today to try and get everything in. We'll now go to kind of our more normal press conference. So thank you very much to the team. Obviously, by the way, that doesn't stop your questions. I don't expect it to, and both press teams will be more than happy to receive your requests. So we'll carry on with that. We're actually going to now go back to our schedule originally, which is we're going to do a little presentation on. We have the director of NOC relations, which I think is quite useful for you, and you can ask your questions. And then, obviously, as ever, all the other questions as well. So we're having a bumper edition of the press conference today. So, I mean, while the team is getting ready, I'll just read you a couple of other little things you might be interested in. I was going to read you the overnight broadcasting audience, some interesting figures from Warner Brothers Discovery. Total unique streaming viewers on their streaming platforms exceeded those from the entire games of Tokyo 2020 after only 2 days. They report that Paris 2024 has driven 1 billion streaming minutes, 7 times higher at the same point than Tokyo, which is quite interesting. And just digital, to give you a quick figure, engagement surpassed the total for the entire of the Tokyo 2020 period yesterday, and now 6.7 billion interactions. Lots of big figures showing what's going on. 13 gold medal events today. I should just quickly tell you that the Fair Play Awards, for those that are interested, which is in collaboration with the IOC, that's already been launched. We're asking for people's suggestions, which is quite a nice thing of examples of fair play by athletes amongst themselves. It's always good to show us. Right, so as I said, I think the team's in place. There's a quick change, and you're on that side now. So we're talking about Olympic solidarity. As you saw if you followed the session, the funding is up by 10%, now $650 million for the next cycle, 4-year cycle. So I have with me James McLeod, IOC Director of NOC Relations and Olympic Solidarity and Olympism 365. It's the longest title in Olympic history. Livia Nyamke, who's the Associate Director for Athletes and Sport and Development, and Tassi Limtiako, who's an Olympic Solidarity Scholarship holder, swimmer from Micronesia, Federated States of Micronesia, and flag bearer at the opening ceremony. So we will try and do a very quick presentation on that and take your questions on that, and then open season again for anything else. So off you go, James.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark, and good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure again to be with you today to be able to give you a bit of an update on Olympic solidarity. I think quite a few of you were here when I was able to give you the great news of the budget increase that was approved by the IOC for Olympic solidarity. So I'm not going to go back into all of that because we gave you all the information. We're going to focus more on Olympic solidarity here in Paris, because Olympic solidarity, as you know, since the 1960s has been there helping the national Olympic committees to be able to prepare their athletes for the games, but also to make sure that they can participate in the games. One of the key elements of this is behind it is to make sure that all 206 NOCs or athletes representing them are here at each edition of the games. But here in Paris, we've done a lot of work at every level of development across the world to get as many athletes, coaches, sports administrators here as possible. What you can see on the screen behind me is the big figures of what Olympic solidarity has achieved in the last 4 years. So since 2021, we had a quadrennial plan where we had a budget of $590 million. In that time, we've been able to help 30,000 athletes at different levels. Not all of them have scholarships like this fellow had, but through youth development programs, through programs developing athletes for continental regional games, we've been able to support over 30,000 athletes. The same with teams, but also what we've looked at is the entourage, coaches and sports administrators. There's dedicated programs to upskill them so that they're able to support their athletes as best as possible. And then I did mention it in the last press briefing after the session. We do have a big program of subsidies for the participation of the NOCs in the games. You can't take it for granted that all 206 will be here. It's a very challenging economic environment, and so we make sure that Olympic Solidarity is able offer subsidies for the NOCs to be able to come to the games. Now, a lot of this, before we go into some of the figures for here in Paris, there's a report that's been published. We'll give you out some QR codes when you're leaving if you're interested. It gives you some information on what Solidarity does and all the services the NOCs provide to the NOCs. So please, we would ask you, take some time to read it. There's some great stories in there of where the assistance is provided. And so with that, I'll just pass over to Olivier, who looks after all their athlete programs, so he can give you a bit of an update on that.
Thank you, James, and thank you also to all of you to allow us to talk to you about what is happening outside of the games. So we're all here to talk about the games, but it's only 2 weeks, and what we do impact the athletes during the whole year. And I heard this morning someone talking about fairness, and the games are probably the place where there is the most fairness when it comes to being in the same condition of training, same financial condition to travel to competition and so on. The world is what it is, and athletes from various regions need support to be able to participate in the game. They need to be supported financially. They need to have access to facilities, access to coaches, and that's what we're trying to do with this program called the Athletes Scholarship Program. So for Paris, we invested $38 million to support athletes across the world. More than 1,500 athletes could benefit from this program, and it's happening through different forms. Some athletes stay at home but use the funding to travel. Some others are paying a coach. Others are placed in training centers that we are partnering with to try to train. And we have, for example, in France here, a partnership with the National Olympic Committee to support 12 of these athletes. They're coming from almost all the NOCs, and they are supported across all individual sports and during a period of 3 years. Without this program, we know from testimony that some athletes would not be able to qualify and participate and be here. If we talk about Paris, here we have 604 of these athletes who qualified, and what we try to achieve with this program is really the universality of the game, is to try to have all nations being here at the games with athletes that are prepared and can compete with dignity and have decent results. We just don't want them to be here. We want them to compete proudly and do results. Before passing on to Tassi and let him explain a little bit of how the scholarship impacted his training and his pathway all the way to Paris, we just want to announce that some of these athletes, some of those 600 athletes already won 8 medals, 5 gold, and we're really proud of it. But what is most important for us is other type of result. We're just counting medals, but for us, we're talking about personal best, national records, first participation of an NOC in a specific sport, first medal from a continent sometimes in a specific sport, and all those data are what we're trying to achieve, making sure that the games are becoming a bit more universal. So I will pass it on to Tassi for him to explain a little bit how the scholarship impacted his training.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tassi Limtiako from the Federated States of Micronesia. And one of the ways the scholarship has really helped me out, currently I'm residing in San Diego, but I was born on one of the small outer islands of the Federated States of Micronesia. And there we didn't have exactly enough resources to, really train or anything. But moving out to San Diego, the funding has helped me train with a really great team out there. I've set new national records. I'm the first man under 30 seconds for the 100 or for the 50-meter breaststroke. I feel like I've taken our level of sports in Micronesia to a higher level, and that's all thanks to the funding that they've provided for me. Just because especially as an athlete, you definitely need the resources to help you train. And this has just, it's really allowed me to not only come to the games, but also take the next step. And hopefully this also lets the next generation of athletes in Micronesia, not just Micronesia, but also around the world, to, also get funding and just take that next step as well. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come to all the other questions in a minute, but if there's questions for NOC relations, NOC solidarity, happy to take those. Yep, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy Holmes from the Australian Radio Network and the Sports Ambassador podcast. My question's for Tassi. Can you explain, Tassi, how you think your career trajectory would have gone without the support of the funding, and just the I guess, does it make a difference mentally as well, knowing that there's a bit of support behind you that you might otherwise have to struggle for?
Yes, definitely. Like, for me, wondering where I have to train next is a huge mental strain. For me, after, I think it was Budapest 2022, that was the World Championships, I was originally training in Thailand, and I had gone back to Guam. Guam had just shut down their 50-meter pool due to restrictions in COVID and no maintenance in it. And so, wondering where I was going to train next, and receiving the funds, I was able to move to San Diego, train with a really elite team there, Coronado Swim Team Elite, and then also leading up to the games, we were able to train in Devon, Lebanon, I believe it was called, and just that, that allowed me to focus on the games and just to be able to do the best I could do. Yep.
If I can just add, Tracy, as well, I mean, Olympic Solidarity has programs of athlete career transition, which are actually super important, because a lot of athletes, such as Tassi, will be starting to think about what to do in the future. And there's a range of programs that we can make available to athletes so that they can have a career after their athletics career, whether it's in coaching and medical and sports administration, etc. So those are discussions we have with them at every edition of the games to see what's next, and just to make sure that they know that they're supported going forward. So, and just sorry, Mark. Tassi was also referencing the pre-games training camp that was set up in Divonne-les-Bains, which was something that was amazingly organized by ONOC, bringing together a lot of the smaller Pacific islands so that they could train together in one place. And that, again, is one of those, that there was finance behind it from Solidarity, but it's that concept of solidarity with the communities in Divonne-les-Bains that were able to host them, but also pooling together their resources so that they could actually have a really high-level training facility. So I think all of that kind of comes together to help support the athletes.
Yep. Okay, any more questions on this topic? Wakako, I think, from Yomiuri.
Okay, I'm Wakako Yuki from Yomiuri Shimbun. Hi. One question each to Tassi and James. Yesterday, I was at the swimming aquatics, and there were many talks of many athletes from not really used to be mainstream stronghold of swimming were coming up, taking medals or taking gold medals for the first time for their country. Tassi, could you comment on that environment when you were at the swimming pool so far? And also, James, what is the meaning of this? And many seems to be training in the US, some stronghold of the swimming, and how what sort of significance that this could mean to the Olympic movement? Thank you.
Thank you, Wakako. I think the whole point of Olympic Solidarity is to support universality of the Games. And we believe that we need to invest in sport across the world so that athletes have an equal opportunity to be able to access the games. And I think you can see that in a number of sports here in Paris, where athletes from countries that are not traditionally strong in that sport are able to access those competitions and actually do quite well. And I think if you follow the results of the Olympic scholarship holders here, you'll be able to see some really interesting new changes in sport where you do have new nations that are appearing with athletes that are doing quite well. And quite honestly, that's thanks very much in part to the Olympic Solidarity programs, but also the IF programs, because we can't do that alone. We need the international federations to be able to help us. On the point on actual swimming, over to you, Tassi.
Yes, I think for just my opinion as a swimmer, it's really great seeing other countries, like smaller countries, start to come up and take gold medals. That's what I think that's what the Olympics is all about. Not just having 1 or 2 or 3 countries get all the golds or all the medals. We want to see other countries develop and come up as and be in the finals or even on the medal podium. That's what I think Michael Phelps was really big about changing the sport, and he's done that, and it's allowed different countries, just smaller countries like my own or other ones, to really kind of have this opportunity and kind of step up. Yeah.
Okay, I think that looks like all the questions on this topic. So Tassi particularly, because you're not paid to be here, so thank you very much for coming, and you're an athlete, so appreciate you sitting through and answering questions. So thank you very much, and thank you to the team. Okay, just quickly, I think Anne wanted to very quickly talk about Champions Park very briefly, and then we'll come on to all your other questions.
So just a few highlights from yesterday. So it was the opening of the Champions Park. We had more than 26,000 people who took the opportunity to attend this opening day. We had very, very good feedbacks from the athletes, and it was really the party atmosphere we were up to. Looking at today, we're going to have 60 sessions, including 10 with medals across 31 venues. And we are especially excited to see the start of basket 3-3 and breaking, this very iconic, emblematic additional sport that we've proposed to the IOC at the Concorde Urban Park. So we invite you to come on site today for this first time for breaking.
Thank you very much. I was told by friends that the Champions Park is incredible, by the way.
It is.
Now, there were 2 people who were interrupted. The lights are terrible here. Someone from, I think, Canadian, was it? Yeah, over there. And then I think Carlos asked a question. And then yes.
Thanks. So Robin Doolittle from the Globe and Mail. I have a question about the Canadian figure skaters. I think you said yesterday you're going to be awarding the team medal events from the Beijing Games to the U.S. and Japanese teams. So when Kamila Valieva was disqualified earlier this year, the medal rankings were adjusted. 2 went to 1, 3 went to 2, but the point allocation was not adjusted, which left the Canadians in 4th. And the decision is being appealed, and that's still ongoing. Are you guys going to get this done before it's too late to deny a medal moment for athletes?
Sadly or not sadly, it's not our responsibility, because CAS is obviously independent from the IOC. It's a legal body that looks into appeals. It's in front of an appeal by 2 sides. We wanted it to be expedited as quickly as possible. We didn't want to be in this position either. And yes, we hope that the bronze can be allocated when it is, but it's a matter for the Court of Arbitration in Sport and not for the IOC, I'm afraid. We're all, unfortunately, don't like the slow movement of justice, but justice is better done properly than not at all.
You're saying you're hoping that it's decided. Have you made any statements? Have you put any, or maybe this is your moment to publicly say, let's get this done. What has been happening with the IOC on this front?
As important as I am, I'm not sure that the CAS is going to listen to the spokesman for the IOC. We really, really hope that they get it done quickly. We've asked for it to be expedited. Everyone wants it to happen. We have to wait. I'm afraid I can't honestly do more than that. But when did you ask for it to be expedited? I don't know when we're in conversation with them. I'm not privy to those conversations, but clearly we knew that these games were coming up. We wanted it to be done as quickly as possible in the first place. They know that. Everyone knows that. I don't think they need any pressure on them to make them do it quicker. But yeah, anyway, we all hope that justice will be done as quickly as possible for everyone concerned. Yes, Carlos had a question too, and then I come to everyone else.
One question for Anne, one for you, Mark. One was on the self-cooling system and the reports that the French team have brought in mobile AC units, a comment on that. And Mark, on the issue of the Palestinian Olympic Committee sending another reminder to the IOC about their demand for the exclusion of the Israeli team, will you respond to them, and if so, how? Thank you.
Yeah, on your first question, just to say that we believe we found a balance for the village between our long-term responsibility to create a model sustainable neighborhood that will last after the Games, with all those innovations brought by the Solideo, this delivery agency for the village, with a lot of innovative construction methods, insulating facades and floor cooling. And on the other side, our responsibility, our short-term responsibility to give to high-performance athletes the best condition in order to perform. And that's the reason why we've offered them the opportunity to rent a temporary AC. On our side, we will always promote the most sustainable solution, but it was important for us to provide them solutions.
Yeah, and to your question, Carlos, obviously on the specific, yeah, we are in very regular contact with all of our NOCs, and particularly those NOCs who are approaching us about various issues. And the Palestinian NOC, I know the President did meet the President of the Palestinian NOC earlier in the week. We regularly meet NOC representatives, and I know the NOC team are in contact listening to people's complaints. The broader point, I would say two things. There are, depending on who you listen to, 20 to 30 wars going on in the world at the moment. If we listen to all of the complaints of all of the teams and all of the... no one would be here. Or we'd probably have 100 National Olympic Committees who actually took part in the opening ceremony. Our job, not the job of politicians. Politicians can bring peace. Our job is to try to unite sportsmen and women to come here and to compete and show, at least to create a culture of peace and show that how the world could be potentially. But we're not overclaiming, but that's our job. Our job is a sports job. The political stuff we leave to the politicians, thank the Lord. Tariq, I think, wanted a question.
Hi, Tariq Panja from the New York Times. Mark, let me preempt your answer, which I think is what you're going to give before. You will say that anti-doping is not the IOC's responsibility, but the ITA's. Please don't say that in this case, I hope.
I don't know what the question is.
I'm going to ask you the question now. So we've reported this morning 2 Chinese athletes, swimmers, tested positive for metadienone, a steroid. That was kept secret. Nobody knew. One of the athletes, Tang Muhan, is here swimming in the 200 freestyle relay, which she won a gold medal in Tokyo at the world record. So she is here. We reported in April 23 Chinese athletes tested positive for trimetazidine, Camilla Valieva's infamous heart drug. Again, kept secret until we've revealed that. And then about a month ago, we reported that 3 clenbuterol cases kept secret, and we reported it. There is a pattern here. In this case, in all these cases, they've not found the source of this drug, but they've always said, I'll do it quickly, it's contamination. WADA have said, we can't disprove this. Even though we're skeptical, we can't disprove any of this. What happened to strict liability? And can you understand why athletes around the world are losing faith in the global anti-doping system? The other day, you guys backed WADA. So can you try and answer this? And is WADA up to standard at the moment?
Yeah, the first answer is it's not you thought I was going to say ITA. It's not ITA's responsibility. It's obviously WADA's responsibility, would have been the answer that you would have predicted me to have given, I think. But in this case, it is WADA's responsibility. And as you well know, and we can have a chat afterwards rather than having a long debate here, I'm happy to do that. But I think there are other questions. But they produced an interim report by an independent prosecutor with three or four, I think from memory, independent experts. And they have found that in this case of accidental contamination, which, by the way, happens all the time, and by the way, the levels of contamination were minimal and absolutely, definitely not performance enhancing. But this is, there's a full report where the prosecutor found that they had taken the right actions and they'd done the right things, and there was no suggestion of bias, not any bias by WADA anyway. So I think that we have to accept that. We have to accept the report, wait for the full report, although the prosecutor has indicated in his interim report that he will make more or less the same findings in his full report. But yeah, I mean, we continue to let WADA, ITA do their job and do their job very well. And by the way, I should also say, in terms of doing their job very well, those athletes, the Chinese athletes, to put people's mind at rest, are the most tested here. Off the top of my head, I think there's been 600 tests since January on those swimmers. So the targeting, which ITA is doing a really good job of, targeting athletes by discipline, individuals, by country, is going very, very well. And I think we need to support WADA. We need a global anti-doping institution. And do they get every single thing right? I don't know. But in this case, their report, the report by the independent prosecutor, has found that they have done. Let's not get into yeah, well, I don't know anything about it, and I'm not. You really can't expect me to. You really can't expect me to say up here, well, you know, give me the full details and I'll read it and I'll give you a response. I'll come back tomorrow, but I imagine it would be included in the findings of this. I don't want to start asking you questions. Is it a same case or different case, or okay, fine. Then I have to wait for WADA to come back to me on that one. Yes, gentleman down here.
Matt Traub with Sports Travel Magazine. Obviously, the triathlon today being delayed because, as you mentioned, so much heavy rain on Friday and Saturday, and now today is the hottest day so far at the Games. We know, Mark, that the IOC is studying the effects of climate change in terms of the sustainability of winter sports, but what concerns do you think the IOC has about the viability of summer sport with increasing temperatures and changing weather conditions around the world, and how it affects the Summer Olympic Games?
Well, it clearly is having an effect. And I think that for me, what I took away, which I didn't know from the presentation, was the fact that we had in 36 hours the whole of a normal rainfall for July. I'm not sure anyone can plan for that. It's pretty difficult. But yes, we have for some time on winter. You're correct. We already have. But in Tokyo, as you know, where heat conditions, I would fair to say, I think, a worse heat and humidity, which is the real issue, worse. We actually took a lot of decisions. We moved the schedule for rugby, if I remember rightly, and also we actually moved the timing, the start of the marathon. I think it started off memory at 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning, and we moved it to the North Island, to Hokkaido. So yes, we have to live in the world that we have. As you say in sport, you have to play what you have in front of you, and we have, you know, growing issues. We have to deal with them. I don't think it's a challenge to Olympic sport or any sport, but you just have to be aware of the changing climate and the changing world we live in. Yeah, Graham from AP down here.
Thank you. Graham Dunbar from Associated Press. I think it's one that's mostly for Anne, but maybe from IOC as well. There's increasing amount of abuse and threats to the performers from the opening ceremony. Are you supporting those those performers who've made formal complaints to the police? Do you have any more awareness of where this is coming from? Whether it's bots and troll farms or there's genuine threats? A view on how, if Donald Trump is calling the opening ceremony a disgrace, this is likely to fuel people who like to take part in culture war issues, and it's only going to get worse. And from the IOC, you have this sort of AI-backed program to protect athletes' social media. I mean, was this anticipated? Has this been extended to the performers who took part in the opening ceremony? Can it be? And yeah, is there any protection you can give them at this stage? Because this looks like it's going to continue for, maybe even the duration of the games.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to strongly condemn the cyberbullying that our ceremony artistic team have been subjected to. We stand by them and we are giving them our full support. Regarding the reactions over the recent days in the media, on social media, I think it's also the opportunity to clarify again this matter. Thomas Joly had the opportunity to clearly and repeatedly say that his inspiration with this sequence was mythological. You may have seen it on the media guide. It's called Festivity. It depicts a pagan feast which is featuring the god of Olympus, and which explains the presence of Dionysus, which is the god of wine and feast, which is the man painted in blue. So this scene was made to end the parade of the athletes in order to celebrate them. It was an invitation to party, staged with this catwalk where we've showcased a new generation of French fashion designer. So if any people have been offended, it was not intentional. And I think everyone should really focus on what the artistic director said about his intention. And we hope that his clarification will put an end to all those misinterpretations.
Yeah, I'll be very brief on that one. I think this is definitely one for Paris 24 because it's the opening ceremony. But obviously, we're fully supporting them and we fully condemn any harassment online, whether it's athletes or people involved in the opening ceremony. It's really not necessary. This is supposed to be about sport, as I'm sure you'll agree. As for the AI tool, it's actually a brilliant tool. It can get through years and years and years of posts for the athletes. I don't know if it's extendable. It's an interesting question. But I would say we also have a whole range, as I'm sure Paris 24 does, of safeguarding measures and officers to stop all sorts or counter all sorts of harassment. Yes, gentleman there next to Rachel.
Alain Mercier-Frangeux, une question pour Anne. Les températures sont annoncées très très élevées aujourd'hui.
A question for Anne. The temperature should be really high today and in the next few days. What measures have you taken or will you take for athletes, but also for fans? I think yesterday the conditions were particularly difficult in archery. On this topic, the first thing is that we have daily monitoring that we are doing next to Météo France for indoor sites. All necessary measures were taken to make sure it was cool enough for outdoor sites. We anticipated these heat waves. We have shaded areas, we have fountains allowing everyone to keep hydrated. And you might have seen that on the vast majority of our sites, we allow access with water bottles, which allows everyone to hydrate regularly. That is something that is a first when it comes to world sporting events. That was our own request. And then after that, we have a lot of information given ahead of the competitions to help athletes and fans take all necessary measures, all best practices to adapt to the heat. When it comes to athletes, we have a whole series of protocols put in place by international federations, allowing, if necessary, to adapt the competition format.
We'll come over here for a bit. Let's start with Sean Ingle from The Guardian, and we'll come over to the gentleman next.
Thanks, Mark. Sean Ingle from The Guardian. There's been a lot of anger, especially on social media, about two boxers who failed gender tests at the 2023 World Champs. They've been cleared to fight here at the Olympics. The first one will box on Thursday. There's people like Barry McGuigan, who's a world champion, who's speaking out. He's worried. I mean, he knows more than anyone, I think, about the dangers and the risks of getting in the ring. there are suggestions these athletes have a DSD and they've gone through male puberty. Now, I understand that medical details are confidential, I guess, but conceptually, first of all, does the IOC think it's right that anyone who's gone through male puberty should be allowed to compete in the female category in boxing, where the safety risks are high? And secondly, what do you say to those who think the IOC, on the one hand, is saying and celebrating the first gender-equal Olympics, and the other hand, perhaps risks undermining this and the very basis of the female category?
Thanks, Sean. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to comment at all on individuals because I think that's really invidious and unfair, and particularly for those individuals concerned. But I would just say that everyone competing in the women's category is participating following complying with the competition eligibility rules. They are women in their passports, and it's stated that is the case, that they are female. They're competing in the women's category. Again, I don't want to mention their names or whatever, but these athletes have competed many times before for many years. They haven't just suddenly arrived. They've been competed. They competed in Tokyo. I won't go into results and so on, but you can probably find out. But I would just make the point that they are eligible by the rules of the federation, which was set in 2016 and which worked for Tokyo to compete as women, which is what they are, and we fully support that. As for the question about testosterone and going through male puberty, as you know, we issued a framework document on this to all the federations, and it's incredibly complex. Everyone would love to have a single answer, yes, no, yes, no. It's incredibly complex and actually boils down to not just sport by sport, but discipline by discipline. So people may have an advantage in this discipline and not in this discipline if they've been through male puberty or not. That we need to leave to, and this is a conversation that we have, to each federation. The federation needs to make the rules to make sure that there is fairness, but at the same time that there's ability for everyone to take part who wants to. So that's a difficult balance. We know that's a difficult balance. But in the end, the experts for each sport and each discipline are those people who are working that. And they know very well, and we have seen cases, but they know very well where there is an advantage, and that if there's a big advantage, that clearly is not acceptable. But that needs to be a decision made at that level, I would say. Yeah, gentleman there.
Hi, Mark. Jeff Eisenberg with Yahoo Sports. The Olympics has added surfing and skateboarding in Tokyo. Breaking is obviously new here. How much of that is to try to draw a younger audience to the games? And how do you gauge at the end of these games whether that's been successful or not?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't get young people playing sport, then we won't be here for very much longer. So, I mean, clearly we have to attract young audiences. We have to go where they are as well, by the way, which is why you have games wide open, why you have sport in the streets, why you have a marathon pour tous. You have everyone, 40,000 people, I think it is, going to be able to take part on the same course as the marathon runners. We have to attract young people to sport. If we don't, we're dead, basically. And our job is to spread the joy and the benefits of sport. By the way, also why we are getting very much involved in esports and having esports games, which are separate to the Olympic Games. But that's where younger people are, and we need to find out what it is that drives them to that, and how we can bring them the benefits of sport and combine the benefits of esports with sport, and that's something that we're doing. So yeah, all of those sports, the formats, the way we're presenting sport, we have to really continue to change, because if you don't change, as the president likes to say, it's change or be changed, and we would like to lead the change, not be led by it, I think. So we have a whole range of measures in terms of obviously viewing figures, online figures, digital figures, and obviously we deal with the federations, but there's a whole metric. I'm not the expert on that, but we have a whole metric about how we judge kind of how sports have performed during the Olympic Games, which range, from ticketing, number of tickets sold, to online, to social media, the whole range of things. In this case, obviously, would be much more on the digital side to try and gauge whether we've got engagement. I was actually at skateboarding yesterday, which was I don't know if anyone else was there, but in Place de la Concorde, it was amazing. A little hot, but very amazing. Yeah, gentleman over there, and we'll come down here.
Johannes Aumüller, one question with regard to the accreditations of the Russian journalists. You have been asked about that yesterday, and you referred to French authorities. But nevertheless, it is a very rare decision to revoke accreditations of journalists and 4 accreditations from journalists of one country under this current political situation. Have you figured out the concrete reasons why these accreditations have been revoked? If there are any proofs of any wrongdoing or suspicious links or anything like that?
I think it's going to be a kind of reasonably brief answer to that, because obviously the security service is not going to share all the details they have with us. It's not actually that rare for participants in the games and occasionally journalists to be barred on what I guess are national security grounds, but I don't know. I can't say further than that. We wouldn't be privy to the reason specifically. You have anything to add? Or?
Yeah, we are not party of the rationale of those decisions, so it's hard to comment.
Yeah, gentlemen, straight down there.
Hi, Julien Potter for Reuters. A question on COVID. There's a growing number of COVID cases at the Paris Games. We were just wondering if organizers and or the IOC had any recent contact with authorities to implement some mitigating measures, mask wearing, etc., that kind of things.
Yeah, there is a protocol that is the same that is used over all the event. Any athlete that is tested positively has to wear a mask, and we regularly remind athletes and all other games stakeholders the good practice they need to adopt in case they have any symptoms, but not much. And regarding the monitoring, the answer remained the same. It's still quite low in France.
Okay, we'll take a few more. Yeah, just down here. Yeah, gentleman over there.
Good morning. Rodrigo Matos from Brazil. I want to ask about skateboarding. Yesterday, Raíssa Leal, she was bronze medal yesterday in skateboarding. When she was competing, she kind of sent a religious message with language of signs, like sign language, sending some religious message during the competition. We know that this is forbidden by the IOC. She didn't know. We asked later. So we'd like to know if there is any look into this issue, there is any consequences or any, and also to end, if it's possible, for the swimming pool of La Défense. We heard from some swimmers that there is low level of water, and so they are not getting good marks. Did you get any complaint, and why is in La Défense and not in the other place that we got a new pool? Thanks.
I mean, I don't know the case, but I mean, obviously it sounds like a genuine misunderstanding. What I would say is that the IOC is very happy for athletes to express themselves on social media, in press conferences, and in other places. The field of play, we try to keep to a sporting field of play. Yeah, there was
there is one question for me. Apologies. So on your question, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't heard about any complaints, but we'll check and get back to you.
I think this is probably, we'll take this one here and then, yeah, we'll see where we go.
Giorgio D'Abruzzo, Ital Press. Yesterday evening, the Italian Fencing Federation lodged a formal complaint to IOC and the International Federation about men's foil final. They contest the verdict of the match and some decisions by the two referees that were Asian as one of the other finalists. In other sports like judo